Dream a little dream of me.
Welcome kindreds, it's Jessica the Story Witch. Under one of my recent videos, Erica Raw Spirit, she asked whether I would consider making a video for people who are starting to teach tarot, and I thought actually that would be a really useful video, so here it is. So I made a few notes to make sure that I kind of cover everything that I wanted to cover. The first point is something which I'm sure if you're kind of watching my channel and things like that, then you will definitely have covered this anyway. But because I know there are a lot of people who do sometimes dive into teaching before they're really ready, the first point is going to be make sure you know what you're talking about. And by that I mean that you will have been reading tarot for yourself, likely you'll be reading for others. Depends on the type of tarot you're going to be teaching. So if you were teaching people to read tarot for others, then most definitely you should have good experience of reading tarot for others yourself as well. But I guess if you're going to be teaching people to read just for themselves, and I don't mean just for themselves in a kind of that's not as great as reading for others kind of way, but I mean as a they are going to only be reading for themselves and perhaps, you know, close family and friends, that kind of thing. You're not training people to be professional readers. Then if you were very experienced at reading for yourself, then that would be fine. You wouldn't necessarily have to be a professional tarot reader reading for other people before teaching in that respect. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. I know most of you watching here are experienced tarot readers. I am going to be making more tarot content for the channel, and some of that content is going to be focused on beginners. I should have made that a little bit more clear in when I made the clarifying cards video, is that it was more aimed for beginners. Obviously this video is more aimed for people who have been reading for a while and are wanting to share the gift of tarot with more people. And that kind of brings me on to my second point of what to think about before you start teaching for others, and that is why. Why do you want to teach other people to read tarot? I know for me it was kind of because people started asking me to teach them. It wasn't a conscious decision, I think I'm going to start teaching some tarot. No, it was more because people were interested and they wanted to learn about how to do it for themselves. So that's why I started. But really I was happy to, because I wanted to. People are sometimes afraid of tarot even now, you know, they're afraid that if they start reading cards, it's going to kind of open them up to a whole world of demons and things that are going to latch onto them somehow and things like that. So I was happy because I wanted people to have this amazing tool that I have, and so that was my why. Your why might be completely different, you know, it might be the same. Let me know down below why you know, if you are thinking about teaching tarot, if you've considered it, then you know, why do you want to teach tarot? What is kind of calling you to do that? And there might be a whole raft of reasons as well, you know. It is often it's not so straightforward as one simple reason. So let's have a look what else on here. Okay, so following on from the why is the how are you going to do it? How are you going to teach? You know, just being so sort of straightforward as to use your YouTube channel. If you have one, you can teach tarot via YouTube. Loads and loads of people are here on YouTube teaching tarot, which is amazing. I didn't know about it until Kellyanne was the first person that I watched teaching tarot over here on YouTube, and it just opened my eyes to a whole new way of learning. Like for some people, book learning is not helpful for them, you know. Obviously everyone, if you're going to be using tarot, you need to actually be using the cards and doing that, you know, yourself. But if book learning doesn't appeal to you, then now we have podcasts, we have video, you know, there's so much more width, depth, breadth of resources available, which is amazing. So perhaps start teaching over on your channel. And even if you are thinking of doing kind of more formalized classes in a way, then I think if you do have a channel or if you have a blog, then it could be useful to start collecting your ideas and starting to teach via those methods first before you kind of start charging people for teaching. So that's the kind of how you're going to do it. My favourite way of teaching is still face-to-face in like a small group, because I find that when you do things like via the internet, even in a kind of closed group or some kind of course setup, which I've used in the past as well, you know, like in almost like forums, you know, where you can kind of be teaching and people feeding back to you, it's not the same. People don't have the same involvement with the content as if they're all in the room together and you're kind of chatting about things and people are bouncing off each other. It's wonderful that we can have these online spaces, because I know for lots of people getting to an actual physical tarot class would be not viable for them where they live. And that's, you know, it's cool. It's so cool that these places you can do this kind of distance learning. But with distance learning, it is very much like what you put in, you get out, you know, so the more you put in, the more you get out. So some people will be really on it and they'll be really engaged with the content, and then some people will just kind of drift around the edges and maybe won't comment very much and things like that. And for me, I don't like that, because I like, if I'm teaching somebody to do something, I want to be engaged, you know. I want them to learn the thing that I was hoping for them to learn. So I'm not happy to just kind of take their money and then let them kind of float around and perhaps engage, perhaps not, you know. I find that difficult. Lots of people don't find that difficult. Lots of people are happy with that because they know they're providing good, solid resources. And if people choose to engage with it or not, then that is totally up to them. And that is totally cool as well. So you need to find your own style, your own kind of way of teaching, which also gives you what you want out of it as well. So that's something to consider. And for me, that is kind of face-to-face small groups, like kind of 6 people maximum really, and meeting not super regularly, because with tarot I really feel like it's the homework that is important. You know, you can cover stuff in sessions, which is fantastic, but then people need to go off and they need to actually use what you've been talking about and actually connect with the cards and find their own meanings and things like that. So it's nice to kind of space it out, I feel, over a kind of longer period of time. That is my kind of preferred way of doing it. But you might find something completely different works for you, and that is what I'm saying, is that you don't have to do it how I'm saying I like to do it, but find the way or ways that you enjoy doing it, which is going to work for you and which is going to work for your students. So yeah, so we've covered the kind of the why you're doing it, the how you're doing it, and also the what. So what is it you want to teach? And this helps you to formulate your actual kind of teaching plans, what it is you want to be teaching. And it also helps people to find the right course for them. So first of all, you know, really obviously in a way, although some people who are like seekers of tarot who have never used it before won't even understand some of the methodology, but you need to know which system it is that you're using. You know, are you going to be teaching within a Rider-Waite system? Are you going to be teaching Tarot de Marseille? You need to be explicit about that to yourself. Perhaps you're teaching to use all 3 of those methods, in which case you need to think about how are you going to present that and how are you going to explain the differences and things to your student. So yeah, think about that kind of what. Perhaps you're teaching, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, perhaps you're teaching people to read for themselves, in which case your focus might be a little bit different than if you're teaching people to read for other people. Obviously, if you're teaching people to read for other people, you will be teaching them also to read for themselves, because that is, well, I feel, maybe not obviously, perhaps no, you might have a completely different way of doing it. But for me, I feel all readers should read for themselves and other people in addition. The best way of learning is to read for yourself and others, I feel, because that really, it kind of, your growth is much quicker that way. But you may completely disagree, but think about your, what, you know, the content, what is it you're going to be teaching? Perhaps you want to go super specific, you know, and teach specifically things like, you know, lessons about the courts in tarot or something like that, or lessons on the minors, or you could take people through a journey of the majors, you know, and you could have a session on each of the majors and do it like that. That would be a totally cool way of doing it as well. You know, there's lots of ways you can kind of frame the content. Is your course going to be for beginners? Is your course going to be for intermediates? Is your course going to be for professional readers? You need to think about who your student is, and kind of taking on that point as well. I find it really useful when you have a group of students. People come to like tarot from some people literally will come to a class when they are a complete beginner and they're just interested, and they've never actually, they might not even have had a reading before, let alone done a reading before. So, you know, real beginners. And then some people will come who have been reading for themselves for a long time, but who maybe have never actually read for anyone else, or still kind of keep it under wraps a little bit that they're reading. And then some people will come who are already professional readers. I still love to learn more about tarot, because we are always learning. You know, it's not something that you can be like, oh yeah, I know that now and I don't need to learn anything else. So think about who your audience is, and when you are starting that class, try and find out where your kind of students are, because that will really help you to kind of structure the content in a way that's useful for them. And that is one of the reasons that I like to work in small groups, because then if I have got like 6 people who've got very different levels of experience, I can tailor things to those individuals. Whereas if you're kind of delivering content to a much larger bunch of people, then it might be more difficult to do that. It's not impossible at all. You know, you could have sort of basic level exercise, and then you could have like extension activities for the people who are already quite familiar with the basic type stuff. And it's always good for everyone to go over the basics anyway, even if they are, you know, an advanced reader. And that also comes back to the way you're kind of letting people know about the course as well. So you should make it clear when you are setting yourself up as a teacher what it is you're going to be teaching, so that people will know if that course is a good fit for them or not. So that can kind of eliminate some of the issues you might have with people being on different levels and kind of having different expectations. What I like to do first of all in the very kind of first session of a group is we all kind of talk about our experiences with tarot, and you know, whether we use it, how regularly we use tarot, when we first started using tarot, whether we read for other people and things like that. And from that then you can be like, oh okay, so and so has been doing this for, you know, X amount of years now, this person's only been doing it for a couple of months, things like that. And that gives you a really good handle onto where you need to take things to meet all of their expectations, to meet all of their needs, so they get what they want out of the course. And, you know, be explicit, ask them, what are you hoping to get out of this? And that way you know what they want, what they expect, and you can do your best to deliver it. You know, unless obviously it's like it's unrealistic. Like sometimes people will come and they're like, oh yeah, I want to change careers, I want to be a professional tarot reader, I want you to teach me to do this in like 5 weeks or something. And I know there are videos on the internet sort of telling people how they can be a professional tarot reader in much less space of time for that. And, you know, that is, in my opinion, utter bullshit. You need, and that comes back to that very first point I made, is you need to have a real deep understanding of the cards yourself before you are teaching that to others. And people need to have a really good understanding of the cards before they start reading, certainly professionally, before you start taking money from people. It's just it's morally wrong, in my opinion, to do that, you know, to take money from people if you don't actually know what you're doing. You know, you wouldn't expect that in other professions, so why is it okay for tarot readers? You know, it gives the people who are really genuinely doing this a bad name, and that's not cool. So don't do that. I'm sure you won't. If you're over here watching my channel, then you wouldn't be doing that anyway, I'm sure. So yeah, you know, if people are looking for a kind of quick fix, a quick you know, learn everything you need to know and then you've got a new career in the bag sort of thing, then you're going to need to help them to adjust their expectations. And sometimes that means that your teachings are not going to be a good fit for them, so they'll just go and find somebody else to take their money. And you know, people know when readers are good. People will give good readings, people will go back. If people aren't giving good readings, then people won't go back. So you know, I think it all kind of works out in the end. Yeah, I wrote don't make it too complicated. Sometimes, especially when you're first starting, you'll have such big plans of what you're going to teach. You'll be like, oh yes, we're going to cover this, we're going to cover this, we're going to cover this, and then you'll start and you'll think, shit, we're never going to get through all this. that is the norm, you know. It's just, you're so excited and you want to be passing on all these wonderful gems, you know, and it's too much and people are overwhelmed and you don't want to rush through it. It's better to kind of make sure people have got a really good grasp on what it is you're doing than to kind of bombard them. But that again is a good way to kind of have, this is the kind of fundamental stuff I want to be covering, and then you can always have extension stuff up your sleeve as well to give those who are looking for taking it a little bit further, you know. And in the same way, you know, don't make it too simple. So you don't want it to be super, super basics, especially if the people who are in your group are already reading, you know, are already familiar with the cards. Look for ways that you can see where they are and stretch them on to the next level. You know, that's what a good teacher does. So plan your lessons, I already talked about that. When you are doing your sessions, it's really helpful at the start to introduce what it is you're going to be doing in that particular lecture or that particular, you know, class. That's how I like to do it. So like in a class, I'd be like, right, today we're going to look at the numerology in tarot. You know, obviously that is a really massive topic to be covered in one session, but you know, basics of numerology and tarot perhaps in that session. And then I'd say, like, by the end of this session, I would like for you to understand that when certain numbers come up in tarot, that they have a meaning. You would have a handout then, you know, with the stuff that you're going to be covering in the session, so that when people go away from the session, they're going to have that as a backup, and they're going to be able to reference that when they're doing their own readings and things, so they can take your information further on in their own readings. And then at the end of a session, it's really cool to recap that learning then as well. So like in this session we were looking at numerology and tarot, and then you can even go around and say, like, what do you feel like you've learned? Was there anything new that you learned today? What do you know now about numerology and tarot that you didn't know at the start of this session? You can kind of go around and people can share their thoughts about it, and that's a really good way of seeing whether people have actually taken it on board. And if they have, brilliant. If they haven't, you know, you can make a little note and think, right, I need to tweak this for next time I'm going to be teaching this topic, and things like that. Examples, include examples and actual readings, you know, for people to get stuck into. Sometimes it can be appropriate for people to read for each other within the group. That works sometimes it doesn't work so well. Sometimes it people feel a bit awkward, you know, reading for people like that in a kind of group setting. So what can be really cool, I found, is to have like a kind of a printed out reading of a situation, you know, so you'll give them a little bit of background. I did a fantastic course with a local tarot reader here in South Wales. She's such a good teacher of tarot. I've learned so much from her. And her name is Etta, her kind of craft name is Etta. And she used to have like a whole scenario, so she'd have like a paragraph of like this person, what they looked like when they came in, whether they came in with somebody else, you know, things like that. The courses she was teaching were for like reading for other people courses rather than reading for yourself courses. So she would give this whole kind of bit of bump, and then she'd show the layout of the cards and everything that were chosen, the cards that came out, and then you've got to interpret the cards, you know, as if you were there as a reader. And those were really, really good exercises. So have concrete examples like that for people to get stuck into. If it's, you know, if you're teaching people more about you know, like psychology and tarot, or reading for yourself and things like that, then obviously your examples would be different from those sort of examples. But have actual exercises that people can do either in the session, although they do take up a lot of time in the session. So if you are going to be doing that, allow enough time. And also people will finish at different times, so it can be really helpful to have on hand some decks and some extra books and things like that, especially spread books and stuff, so that people, if they do finish quicker on the exercise, but some people are still working, you don't want to be rushing through the exercise, there's other things for the other people to kind of be carrying on with as well. So that's also really helpful. Ask for feedback. So at the end of your sessions, you can sort of say, or, you know, maybe not at the end of every single session, but perhaps at the end of your course, have a feedback form. And, you know, or maybe not even form, you could ask people for face-to-face feedback. But I've found people tend to write things down on forms that they wouldn't necessarily say face-to-face, even the nice things, you know. So it can be helpful just to have a little feedback form, like, how did you find this course? What do you feel you learned? What was the best thing that you learned on this course? Was there anything that you would change? You know, were there any expectations that didn't get met? Things like that. So then you can take that information and move it forward for when you're going to be teaching your next tarot course. So yeah, just checking what else did I put down. Okay, so I put down a little note about frustrations, some frustrations you might encounter. I've already covered one of these, which is when people are perhaps coming and they have unrealistic expectations, like wanting to become a professional tarot reader overnight kind of thing. The other things that you know, that hasn't actually happened to me. So I've been lucky in that respect. I've never had anybody come and sort of say that. I hope, because of the way that I've ever explained about how I'm going to be teaching, what I'm going to be teaching, that is not a kind of it's not a quack kind of crash course type thing. So if you're clear, then hopefully that situation won't come up for you either. But situations I have encountered are that sometimes people come and they want to literally like be spoon fed the information, and they don't want to do any work outside of the actual lessons, the actual class times. So that's really, I find that frustrating, because I think, well, why did you come if you aren't wanting to put in the effort to learn? But it's happened so much now in my life that I know that this is a thing, you know, that people do want to do this. They want to have the information and they want to be able to do the thing, but they don't necessarily want to put the work in to be able to do the thing. So that can be frustrating, but it is something that does happen. And to be honest, in a way, you just got to kind of not let that get to you, really, and just give the information as you would, and hope that on some level that it is kind of filtering in, and it is going to make those changes. It's just going to take a lot longer. So yeah, that's kind of something that can be frustrating. Be flexible as well. That was something I noted, because sometimes you'll have like a whole plan of something you're going to cover, and then you might do an exercise and somebody will bring up a point which isn't related to the point that you were going to be covering in that session, but it's so fascinating and everyone else is kind of, oh yeah, that's cool, you know, and people are interested, and rather than kind of saying, oh yeah, that's really interesting, but we'll come back to that another time, be flexible in that you can delve into those cool things that come up as well, you know, and then it's just using your own judgment, and the more you do it, you'll know, right, is this a good time to kind of go off on a tangent, or is this a good time to be kind of pulling things back to where I wanted to be, you know, to the topic and the things I wanted to be covering in this particular session. So that's something you just get better at with experience, really, with doing. And that is something I wanted to say as well, is like, be kind to yourself and allow yourself to, because although you are an experienced reader, if you're not an experienced teacher, that's a whole other skill to learn. So be kind to yourself and understand that this is something new that you are doing. Just because you know tarot, like I said, like the back of your hand, doesn't mean you can necessarily teach tarot like the back, you know, so straightforward. It is a whole new skill. So be kind to yourself and give yourself time as well to reflect on what went well, what maybe didn't go so well, how you could change things in the future. It's really useful to kind of keep a journal of your teaching experiences so that you can look back on it, because, you know, your learning curve when you're teaching, and that is one of the reasons why I recommend it to people, is wonderful to teach tarot, because, you know, reading for yourself you learn a lot, reading for others you learn faster. Teaching tarot, oh my god, you need to learn really fast. Then, you know, it accelerates your learning, because you are then answering questions that people are posing for you, and if somebody asks you a question you don't know the answer, you can just say, I don't actually know the answer to that, but I will find out for you, you know, and that's totally cool as well. Or like, say, what, you know, does anybody have an answer to that question? It can be just a really good discussion point then as well, you know. Don't feel like you have to know everything. As long as you've got a really good foundation, then that's fine. You know, if you literally wait until you know every single thing about tarot, every system, all the history, all the different ways you can read the cards, all the books, until you've read all the books, you know, you're never going to do it. So you've got to weigh up do I have enough experience with, am I just literally going to put this off until I die? And if you decide that you're ready to teach, then, like I say, it is a fantastic way of speeding up your growth and your knowledge, because by teaching something you really do understand it in a completely different way, and seeing other people, the questions they have and the way they do things, it's like whoa, you know, so many insights that you may not have had just by reading for yourself and reading for other people, you know. So I definitely do recommend it. It is really, really cool and wonderful and great for your own growth, and obviously great for the people who you are teaching too. So okay, so have I kind of covered this already a little bit, but the one last point was keep on learning. So because, you know, you're an experienced reader, you read for yourself, you read for other people, you're a teacher of tarot, that doesn't mean that you put a lid on it there, you know. It is if you're a teacher of anything, it is your responsibility to always be learning as well. You know, there are no teachers who are not learners, or there are no good teachers who are not learners, in my opinion. Be ready to learn from your students, but also continue to learn from other sources as well, you know, from books, from online courses, from YouTube, from podcasts, from wherever you feel best learning from, but just keep that own spark of curiosity and learning alive in your heart as well, and then you will be a fantastic teacher. So I hope that was useful, and like I said, it's mainly for Erica, but I hope it'll be handy for other people as well, because I know there are quite a few people in the community who are like perhaps shifting from being a professional reader to perhaps starting to teach tarot. Let me know if you have been thinking about it, or if you've taught tarot. And yeah, if you have taught tarot and you've got other things to add to this as well, then please do that, because, you know, add that to the conversation so that people who are thinking about reading for others, teaching other people to read for others, or teaching other people to read for themselves, can also have your excellent benefits of experience and things as well. So yeah, let me know down below about that, and let's start a conversation down there. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.